Hello, this is Archie Dunlop with Talking Astrology with Archie, and it's Wednesday, June the 14th, 2023. Today I want to talk about the charts of Boris Johnson and Donald Trump. I was looking at some of the comments people made about my recent videos, and at least one person asked me if I could do a video comparing the charts of the two men. Now, Donald Trump and Boris Johnson are often seen as being similar. People on the left regard them as being sort of anti-globalist monsters, perhaps two heads of the same demon, regressive people who support the continuance of the nation state, people who support, regressive policies, and so on. People on the right are very often sympathetic to Boris Johnson and Donald Trump. They feel that they've been set up by the deep state, and this is perhaps what they think has happened recently. Over the last few days, it seems as if their destinies are entwined. The same kind of things seem to be happening to them at the same time. We've had Donald Trump having this indictment, I believe under the Espionage Act, for keeping documents at his home after he was no longer president. And then we have Boris Johnson, who has fallen foul of the House of Commons Privileges Committee, who have found that he misled the House of Commons when describing or when reporting what was going on during the so-called Partygate scandal, which was all about him having parties at number 10 or being involved in parties at number 10 during lockdown. So let's have a look at their charts. There are some similarities in their charts, but there are also some big differences, and that's what I want to look at. So here is Boris Johnson's chart, and you can see that he has got a lot of planets in Gemini. He's got Mars in Gemini, Mercury in Gemini, Sun in Gemini, and Venus in Gemini. There he is, born June 19th, 1964, the end of Gemini. And, Donald Trump was born almost exactly 18 years before him on June 14th, 1946. And you can see Donald Trump also has a few planets in Gemini. He's got the Sun in Gemini, he's got Uranus in Gemini, and he's got the North Node in Gemini. But he's not quite as strong as a Gemini as Boris is. Now, both men, Donald Trump and Boris Johnson, have got strong suns in Gemini. The Sun is a daytime planet, and so both men born in the daytime, and that makes the Sun strong. And in both cases, obviously, the Sun is above the horizon, and furthermore, the Sun is a masculine planet, and Gemini is a masculine sign. So altogether, this makes for two men with strong suns who are able to express their identity very powerfully. But, to say, oh, they're both Geminis, therefore they've got similar personalities, whatever, that is a bit of a generalization, because, all of these 12 signs can work on different levels. The best example of how a sign can work at different levels is actually shown by Scorpio. Now, Aleister Crowley, wrote this book about the tarot called The Book of Thoth, and in his book, he wrote about the death card, and the death card is intimately connected with Scorpio. And in his description of the death card, Aleister Crowley talked about the three levels of Scorpio, the three ways in which the sign Scorpio can function. At the highest level, Scorpio is the eagle. The eagle soars above everything, doesn't get involved in all the squabbling and fighting down here on Earth. It can go above the clouds, being, really spiritual, and as it soars above the clouds, it can really find its true self. And so, the eagle is the highest level of Scorpio. At the intermediate level, Scorpio is the snake. The Scorpios are a very cautious sign. They can be. The world is a dangerous place, and Scorpios like to keep a low profile. So there is a snake hiding under a rock. At the lowest level, the symbol of Scorpio is the scorpion. The self-destructive side of the sign Scorpio. There's this legend. I don't think it's true. I wouldn't quite call it a legend, but anyway, according to the story, if you surround a scorpion with a ring of petrol or gasoline in the United States, and you set fire to it, and so it's got a ring of fire around it, it will sting itself to death. I don't think that's actually true, but you get the symbolism there. So at the lowest level, the sign Scorpio is self-destructive. So Gemini kind of works in a similar way in terms of different levels. So going back to Boris Johnson's chart, I would have said that Boris Johnson is quite a high-functioning, high-level Gemini. I mean, whatever you think of him, he is an extremely intelligent man. At I suppose around 13, he got the King's Scholarship to Eton. You've got to be pretty bright to become a King's Scholar. He got a scholarship to Balliol College, Oxford, I believe he got a scholarship to Balliol College, Oxford, to read classics. And he's really clever, really intellectual. He knows a lot. He writes a lot. He's a very good writer. He's a very good speaker. He's lazy. He doesn't read his briefs, all that kind of stuff. Complacent, yes, but he is clever, and so I would have said he is a high-functioning Gemini. That highest level, Gemini is about the intellect, but it would be wrong to say that every Gemini is an intellectual, and I think we see that with Donald Trump. He is, I believe, a lower-functioning Gemini. The lower-functioning Geminis are often obsessed with trivia and gossip. They move from one piece of gossip to another. And when you think of Donald when he was president, with his Twitter feed and he with his tweets and getting obsessed with reality TV stars and what gossip about one. This is just real garbage, but Geminis can really get into when they're functioning not at the highest level. So you think there are huge gaps in Donald Trump's knowledge about basic facts about the world, which I think was shown when he was president. So that's him. That's Donald Trump. When we think of Boris Johnson, he was a Gemini and he was a prolific writer. Donald Trump, we've heard about, he's had some books published, The Art of the Deal, but I don't think he wrote The Art of the Deal. It's ghostwritten. So that shows how how different different types of Gemini. I suppose where the Gemini both fits them very well is Geminis, they change. It's quite a flexible sign, and they can be flexible in their beliefs. I don't believe that Boris Johnson and Donald Trump really believe him very much. I think that they are flexible. They believe in what they have to believe. I mean, I think that fundamentally, I doubt that Donald Trump cares too much about abortion. I doubt he cares too much about gun rights. I think that probably before he got involved in politics, he probably was quite sympathetic to the idea of universal health care. But expediency meant that he had to take particular political positions. So hence his flexibility. With Boris Johnson, he didn't always support Brexit. He was on the fence. He was working it out, and then I think at a certain stage in the referendum campaign in Britain, he decided to throw in his lot with the Brexit side of things. So there is a sort of fluidity in both men in terms of what they believe in, and I don't think they specifically believe in very much. So yeah, I think that's an important point to make. As far as communication is concerned, it's often said that Mercury is the communication planet. I would say that Mercury is a communication planet. So going back to Boris Johnson's chart, he has Mercury in Gemini. He's got a very strong Mercury in Gemini. Mercury rules Gemini. When the sun rose just before he was born, the morning of his birth, Mercury rose first, followed by the sun. In a masculine sign. That's a strong Mercury, and he certainly, I think, communicates through his Mercury. Hence his writing, his speaking. He's never lost for words. But does Donald Trump communicate through his Mercury? I mean, let's look at Donald Trump's chart. There's Donald Trump. His Mercury is not in Gemini. It's in Cancer. And in astrology, the water signs are said to be mute. And the animals connected with the water signs are supposed to be mute. I mean, crabs don't make a noise, ruler of the animal associated with Cancer. Fish associated with Pisces, they don't make a noise. And it's likewise scorpions associated with Scorpio, as we've just been talking about, they don't make a noise. That Mercury doesn't strike me as being very communicative. I think, or at least I would put forward the theory, that actually Donald Trump communicates through his moon in Sagittarius. The moon is a far more instinctive way of communicating. But, I think that in Indian astrology, the moon is associated with communication, to my knowledge it is. So, the moon is how one instinctively responds. People with the moon in Sagittarius, they're quite honest. They say it as it is. They say what they believe. I think when he was president and he was in France, I think he was in Paris, he was supposed to visit the grave of, I think, some Marines who had been killed in this First World War battle, and it was a very important battle, and the Marines had been, very brave, and it was, it would seem to make sense if you're president of the United States to go visit this war grave, particularly if you're in Paris, and they were killed in France, and it was raining and he didn't go. And apparently, I don't know whether it's true or not, he said that, something like, oh, they were losers, got killed for nothing. What was it? What was the point? Or words to that effect. Now, you can criticize him, but he was just being honest. Moon in Sagittarius. And he does this all the time. He says things that no one else can say. It's just an instinctive thing. That's Moon in Sagittarius. So I think Moon in Sagittarius, yeah, he says what's on his mind, but it's not really a Mercury kind of communication. Now, talking about Mercury in Cancer, when people talk about Donald Trump, at least particularly in an astrological sense, they often forget that he does have 3 planets in Cancer, because it may not fit the narrative. Cancer is an emotional sign. People don't normally associate Donald Trump with emotion. That kind of family-orientated kind of emotion. But I think that his family is very important. Cancer in the family, regardless of the fact that he's had several wives, he may not have treated his wives often very well, but it matters to him. With Boris Johnson, it's sometimes been said that he doesn't know how many children he has. I mean, I'm sure that's not true, but Donald Trump for sure knows how many children he's got. There was a picture of him at some wedding a few days ago, and he was, it looked like he was trying to get into the image of it being some kind of mafia event, the family. I think that's important to him. Cancer, the mafia is certainly ruled by Cancerian organization. Silence, crab is a silent animal. The mafia is silent. And, with Trump, the family matters to him. I mean, I know some people might say no, but I think it does. And, Cancer is a very traditional sign. It doesn't like to experiment. With Donald, he's into traditional things. Like he likes all his gold and glitz. He's not a very imaginative person. His taste seems to verge, I don't know whether kitsch is the right word for it, but he doesn't have much taste. But he has a very Cancerian tastelessness to him. He likes things to be straightforward. Boris Johnson, by contrast, is really a much more sophisticated person. There's also the question of the elements. Now, Donald Trump and Boris Johnson both have elemental gaps. So, with Donald Trump, the elemental gap is in Earth. He has no Earth signs. No Virgo, no Capricorn, no Taurus. With Boris Johnson, he has no fire signs, nothing in Leo, nothing in Sagittarius, nothing in Aries. So, as I recently said, Boris Johnson's lack of fire means he's looking for excitement elsewhere. He wants, he doesn't actually initiate things. Like with Brexit, it wasn't his idea, Brexit. But he just got on the bandwagon because it was the exciting thing to do. And I think he shares that. I think that. By the way, I know I'm kind of deviating, but I think that if we look at the chart of Elon Musk. Yeah, you can see Elon Musk doesn't have any planets in fire signs. Elon Musk, he sort of gets involved in things afterwards. It's not quite his idea, but he comes in afterwards and gets excited about it. So he kind of follows in the coattails of other people's ideas. Like when he got involved, he was into Dogecoin and Bitcoin. I mean, even Tesla, I don't think that Elon Musk actually started Tesla. He just got involved in it because, he's a Cancerian. He can pick up on things, but he's not the initiator. And Boris Johnson, likewise, with his lack of fire, is not really the initiator. That's why he got into Ukraine. Here was something exciting going on in Eastern Europe, but he could get involved with. Shame about all the people that got killed, that are getting killed. Certainly his scuppering of the peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. Him and others helped scupper those talks. So yeah, that was the exciting thing. Get involved in a good war. That would be a sign of a lack of fire. They might take that view. Now with Donald, I think the lack of earth is really quite interesting, because when you have a lack of earth, you very often feel a need to compensate. He has this lack of earth, so he gets really obsessed with money, material stuff. And one of the ironies of Donald Trump is that he was left a lot of money by his father, and if he had taken this money, or so I've heard, and he'd put it into I don't know, a Standard and Poor tracker fund, assuming these things existed, or done something like that, and just not got involved with casinos or business or whatever, he'd be a lot richer than he is now. So his financial wheelings and dealings, he seems a rich man, but he's actually, in terms of family money, it hasn't helped. So his wheeling and dealing hasn't helped at all, and that may be reflected by his lack of earth. He just doesn't quite understand money. He kind of thinks it's important, but he doesn't really get it. And the lack of earth, I think, is also reflected with his approach to, the environment. He doesn't seem to care about the environment. He doesn't seem to have a feel for the environment. When he was a president, he was a disaster from an environmental point of view. He almost seemed to enjoy attacking the environment. He was almost doing it in a trolling kind of way. But no, he doesn't have a feel for that. I don't think he likes the environment. And in terms of his base, the standard person who supports Trump, if you think of the stereotypical Trump supporter, you think of the pickup truck, you think of the guns, you even think of the dog. But that kind of person, Donald Trump, as others have said, he wouldn't want to invite those people round to his place in Florida, to Mar-a-Lago. No, because he doesn't really want to get his hands dirty. I think you get that feeling with that lack of earth. And there's an important point, well, I don't know if it's an important point, it's an interesting point, that there's this Wikipedia page which talks about all the presidents and the pets they've had. And going right back to the 19th century, and maybe even earlier, I don't know, can't remember. But some of these presidents had loads of pets. They had whole menageries in the White House grounds. But every single one has had some kind of pet. Even Obama, in the end, Obama got a dog. I don't know why Obama got a dog. Maybe he wanted a dog. Maybe he thought, he's president. That's a thing that people expect presidents to do. But Donald, no, he doesn't do pets. He doesn't like dogs. I don't think he likes dogs. Melania, I don't think she likes dogs either. I don't think she wants it. I don't know for sure about her. But the thing about Donald and dogs is that when he was president, there was an episode when some dog, I think, was awarded some medal. I think this dog had helped in some special forces attack, which I think they were killing some terrorist leader, and the dog got wounded, and so the idea was that Donald Trump would award this dog a medal. So the dog came to the White House and whatever, but you could tell from Donald Trump's body language, he did not want to be there. He did not want to be anywhere near this dog. He was afraid that the dog wasn't muzzled. He was just couldn't deal with it. I think that there was a nice picture of Pence petting this dog, but I think Pence, he's into animals. I think he has pet rabbits or something. But so this inability to handle animals, and this totally not wanting dogs. Now there's a difference between him and Boris Johnson. I think around the time that Boris Johnson became Prime Minister, there was a lot of publicity about him and his partner, I think now wife, Carrie, I can't forget the rest of her name, is it? But anyway, they got a rescue animal, and his wife is she's a big animal rights advocate and campaigner. Was it Carrie Simmons? That's right. So yeah, Boris has no problems with dogs. He's got a bit of Earth in his chart. He's got Jupiter in Taurus, and he's got I don't really count Uranus and Pluto, but yeah, he's okay with dogs. But Boris has a real, but Donald, got a real problem with dogs, and I think that is because of his lack of Earth. Donald just does not understand Earth. Now, one other point is that Boris Johnson has the North Node fairly close to the midheaven at the top of the chart. Donald Trump also has his midheaven in the 10th house at the top of the chart. So I think that this is perhaps, well, I don't know, it's kind of connected maybe with the fact they're 18 years apart, and they've got their no, it's not connected at all, sorry about that. But the point is, they've got North Node, the North Node in both cases is at the top of the chart, and that's kind of their karma, where they should be going. So both men are doing the right thing by going into politics and wanting to become leaders of their country. I know their enemies would disagree, but we all have our destinies to play. Both Donald Trump and Boris Johnson became leaders of their country for a higher purpose. Now, we can't see that, but destiny works in a strange way. The universe wanted them to do what it wanted to do that. Now there's one other thing I do need to talk about, is women and their attitudes to women. Now, Donald Trump has a certain reputation when it comes to how he handles women and his attitude to women and what he says about women. Now, in the horoscope, Venus symbolizes women. The moon also. And in Donald Trump's chart, he's got a Venus-Saturn conjunction. So Saturn is stomping on Venus. So imagine there's the poor woman in his life, whoever his wife is or other women he's got involved in. It's completely, very close to Saturn, overwhelmed by Saturn, crushed by Saturn, probably being, undermined, her self-esteem perhaps being undermined by Saturn. So it's tough being a woman around Donald, I think, because of that Venus-Saturn conjunction. So what about Boris? Does he have a Venus-Saturn conjunction? No, he doesn't. But he's got a Venus-Sun conjunction. And I don't know, this may also say something about the way he treats women or has treated women in the past. A Venus-Sun conjunction is unfortunate, certainly if you're the woman, because the Venus is the woman in his chart and conjunct the Sun. The Sun burns what it touches. It overwhelms what it touches. And so, Sun-Venus conjunctions are, can be difficult. So if you're a woman and you are considering marrying, for example, a man who's got a Sun-Venus conjunction, I would think very carefully about it, because it may not be such a good thing to do. So although it's, so in both cases, both men have got afflicted Venuses. Yeah, so Donald, Venus conjunct Saturn, Boris, Venus conjunct the Sun. So that is, that is an interesting similarity. Anyway, I've gone on for long enough about Donald and Boris. I hope you found that comparison interesting, and I'll talk to you again very soon.